Hello and welcome back to All for United. It's your Thursday morning today at Man United. We're almost at the end of the week, a week that we'll probably be glad to get out of the way of. I'm not usually a massive fan of international week, but I'm quite glad to have it at the moment because I feel like we need a bit of a break from Manchester United and all the things that's been going on, the transfer window and just everything combined. Actually, I feel like the international breaks come at the right time. I feel like now we can get to the end of this break and say our season starts when we come back a week on Saturday, I think it is, or is it Sunday? I'm not quite sure which day we play, but following weekend it'll be great to have the boys back when we play Newcastle. I'm delighted to say today I'm joined by Oliver, who's one of our contributors at All for United. How you doing, mate?
I'm very good, Joe. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Great to have you on this morning. Matthew, I'm working with you for the first time today, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, very well, Joe. Very well. Nice to see you, buddy.
Yeah, no, great to have you on, mate. Thank you. And Keane, I've worked with you before, mate. We did the match preview, I think, last week, didn't we? But great to have you on again today, mate, to get your thoughts on what we'll be talking about.
Yeah, look, it's great to be back on the channel again here today, though. We really enjoyed the last show, the match preview, and look, the match didn't go our way, but look, I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when we were previewing that last Thursday, who'd have thought that it would have ended the way it did, eh? But no one foresee that coming. But if you're watching now, do smack a like on this video. Do subscribe to this channel. We've got so much great content on here, as you can see. You can go through and see everything that we've done. A lot of transfer-related stuff that's obviously over now, but it's all there still for you to view if you want to go back over it. We had some great interviews with journalists. We do the match previews. We have reactions, Wall of Reds on a Sunday. Loads of great stuff. So do put a like on this video and do subscribe to the channel. Now, the news that's sort of been brewing over the last 24 hours, 12 hours, last night, yesterday, the last couple of days really, it's not just a United thing. It's a football thing in general. And this idea about now is probably the time to start trying to get fans back into the grounds. I don't know too much on the ins and outs of the government plans, but I do know originally there was this plan to try and have fans slowly but surely coming back into games as of the 1st of October. But because of the threat of the second spike, that plan was put back, probably rightly so. But I've noticed when I'm tweeting at the moment, and I'm part of quite a few group chats, I'm noticing people are putting petitions in there now that, they want fans to sign in terms of, get this signed and let's try and push the government to change their mind. But I'll start with you, Ollie. Looking at the way that the country is at the moment and looking at the nature of football, do you think it's the right thing for us to be pushing this as football fans to get people back in stadiums?
Well, I mean, personally, I'm in a bit two minds between it. I mean, do you remember back the Liverpool game, the European game against Atletico?
Yeah.
There seemed to be a massive spike that followed that, when it wasn't quite, we hadn't figured it out yet, and everyone sort of knew what was coming. It was the same with Cheltenham, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I think the massive impact that had locally, to Liverpool, I think the first club that does attempt to do it, you'll give it the 2-week sort of period of incubation, and then we'll see the same thing again. So I don't know whether the people that are taking it a bit lightly will be all for it. But, I know knowing people that have had it and had it quite badly, I mean, they can see the sort of really quite serious side of it. So I'm all for, taking it as serious as it needs to be.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you guys in the comments saw any of the football on the weekend, but you can see in the internationals, because there was only sort of 2,000, sort of 3,000 on average, it didn't have the same impact. I mean, a full stadium, even cheering the names at the start, if someone shouts, let's say Lingard or anything, and it's a little bit louder than it was the week before, it gives them that extra boost.
Yeah.
Like, right, the fans are up for this, they're behind me.
Yeah.
That's even before the game's kicked off,
Yeah.
Or like bad decisions, it has a massive impact. But if the stadium's, it's only got 2,000 people in, you're not going to get that anyway.
No, I
So
know
I think-
exactly what you're saying. I mean, you probably not use the best example there, saying Jesse Lingard, mate, because you probably
Well,
don't get the biggest cheer even when there is the crowd. I know exactly what you're saying, and to be fair, Ollie, I've said the same as well. I just feel, especially a stadium like Old Trafford, I've watched academy games on MUTV on there. You know, when there's only 10 or 20,000 in there, there's nothing worse than a massive stadium that's only half full, quarter full, not even a fifth full. It just doesn't sound right, and it's not great. But I want to give you all a chance to have your opinion on this. So, Matthew, I'll come to you. I mean, Oliver said there about, this idea that some people are taking Corona more serious than others. You look on social media, some people are saying that the government is scaremongering a lot of the time with the information that they're putting out there and the sort of guidelines that they're putting in place. But I'm sort of the feeling that actually, if one person's affected by this, it's one person too many, and we do have to be careful with how football does reintegrate fans back in. So, same question to you as Ollie. Really, do you feel like this is the time, or are we right to postpone it?
For me, it's absolutely right that it's postponed. Listen, guys, I'm an NFL fan, and I watch NFL every Sunday, and the way they're doing it in the States is they're letting each franchise make the call on what they do based on local cases. But you've still got huge teams in the NFL with huge stadiums only having up to a maximum of 25% capacity, some down as little as 5%. And actually, the point that you guys have made is that when you've got a partially full stadium, it feels empty anyway. It feels empty anyway. This virus is just as prevalent, if not more prevalent, in the States. But their whole outlook on it has been completely different to ours. And for me, if you're going to start encouraging people to congregate, it's got to be for essentials only. It's got to be for things like getting kids back to school. Trying to get elements of the economy back up and running. And I get that football clubs play a huge part in a local economy. I absolutely get that. But the rest of the economy doesn't encourage thousands of people to go and share hot dog stands and stadiums and seats and toilets and things like that. So for me, as much as football isn't the same game without the fans there, sometimes sport just has to take a little bit of a backward seat, and this is one of those occasions.
Yeah, and I mean, Matthew, while I've got you there quickly, obviously you touched on the NFL there, and I'm with you. I mean, we've even looked in this country. We've got areas, counties, local places that are worse off than others. I think Manchester's been in local lockdown since end of July, on and off. So, the problem with that is if you start getting some districts or areas or towns or cities and clubs deciding that we can have fans because it's not too bad here, but then other teams can't, surely you're then going to have this talk of, well, is that fair? Because if we can have fans and you can't, then that gives you a distinct advantage. I mean, has there been any talk of that in the NFL, that these franchises that are having fans or other teams who aren't having fans complaining because they feel like it's a disadvantage?
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. There's a lot of furore at the moment because you're now looking at teams that have introduced fans and got a win, and are now saying, well, actually, we'll now carry on introducing fans. Now that's now dependent on the result of a sports fixture as opposed to being dependent on the safety of the fans and of the general public, of the players, of the staff that have to work in the ground. So for me, look, I think when we look across the pond and the way the US coverage of this virus has been portrayed, whether it be accurate or not, if they're doing it that way, we should absolutely be doing it the opposite way. And the opposite way for me is a blanket ban on, we will not be encouraging people to get together in a stadium for a sporting event. But no, touch on your point. You're absolutely right. You've now got franchises, I believe, making decisions on fixture results, not health and safety, and that for me is wrong.
Yeah, that's always the danger in it. And Keane, I'll come to you, mate. You might think exactly different to these guys, and if you do, mate, please do say, because if you feel that it's time for fans to get in there, I mean, there's no doubt there's an argument for it. You know what I mean? But do give us your thoughts, mate. What do you think? Do you think that this petition should get signed and we should be getting fans back in, or do you think we're right to wait?
I think we're right to wait, because obviously, like, look, cases are still high, infection rate is still high. Though we're still that kind of, I suppose, we're coming into a season now of winter where kind of the flu season comes in as well, and that's going to be very prevalent around this time of year. And coronavirus is a very serious thing, so we don't want to be risking this very too early. Now, look, I can see clubs' point of view; they want to get the revenue back in, they want to get the revenue streams back in. You also have, I can see the mental side for fans. Obviously, like, look, football is a very big part of a lot of people's lives, and going to games every weekend or midweek or whenever it may be. I can see people obviously wanting to get that back as part of their lives. But look, I look at it from this side here. Like, over here in Ireland, we have the GAA over here, hurling and the Gaelic football, and all that's being played behind closed doors now, because the infection rate here in Ireland is starting to creep up. Now, it hasn't got to a point where it's lockdown levels, but we're nearly here, and our government over here shut down all sporting events and put it all behind closed doors. I think at the moment, because look, we're all kind of all close together, it still needs to be behind closed doors, because we're still at a very tender stage, and the last thing we need is to cause another spike in cases, and it'd be very irresponsible for us to kind of bring fans back to a very high level. One thing I will say, if we're gonna bring fans back, we need to do it in a kind of a slow stage way. We need to do it in a way that's safe for everyone, where social distancing can be abided by, and there's sanitization, hand sanitizing and all that kind of stuff. But again, look, it's very early days before we can bring fans back to a maximum capacity. We're probably realistically looking probably at the new year before we actually see kind of fans come back significantly. I think between now and Christmas, we're not going to see anything significant. And I think it'd be very irresponsible of the government and the powers that be if we brought them back kind of at full throttle at the moment. I think it'd be very irresponsible.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting what you're saying there about bringing them back gradually, so social distancing can be abided by. But my only thing I will say about that is, if you're going to say, for example, say to Manchester United, the first time they can bring back fans back, right, you can have 2,000 or 10,000 in your stadium today. I'm not quite sure how much you're going to learn from that, because if they are socially distanced, and everything's abided by, then that's basically the same as having an empty stadium for me. It's then at some point you are going to have to take the plunge, obviously, of putting more people in there and putting them close together. And when is ever the right time to do that? I mean, and I think the point you made, Keane, about we're coming into sort of flu and cold season now. I mean, when this first happened, when it first came about around Christmas time, and obviously we went into lockdown end of February, beginning of March, I was hopeful that it'd be gone by the summer, you know what I mean? But obviously we're coming into a real sensitive time of the year now, and I feel like people are going to go to games, and if they're close to people and they start losing the sense of taste and smell, they may just have a cold. We all get that feeling when we've got a cold, don't we, or a flu? But they're going to struggle to think, well, is it cold or is it COVID? And then you're just going to have so many people who are going to be unsure about their illness. But I just want to move it on to sort of the football side of things, and just in terms of, we know, I mean, you guys have already touched on it there. It's not the same watching football on TV as watching it at the ground. It's not the same without having fans in the ground. But actually, we've been very critical of United this season so far, on various channels and various videos, and rightly so, because obviously our performances are not being great. But do you think that's a bit of an issue? Us watching them on telly constantly at the moment, do you think we view them differently to when we go to games? I mean, Ollie, I'll come to you first. Do you attend games regularly, and do you find that sometimes when you watch a game on television, does a player's performance look different to when you watch it live at the stadium?
Well, I think to say when you watch it on television, it looks different. I think they give you more tools, if you like, just to see the details of what's going on, especially sort of at the minute, it's just happened. Let's have a look at 10 different replays from all the angles. Obviously, it's better going to the games, or well, it would be if you get a full stadium.
Yeah.
But when you're watching it at home, there is all the the analysis, all the professionals. Everything's broken down to every little detail, so you can see from 10 different angles, which makes it easier to be, a little bit more critical. It's obviously saying, like, armchair fans, they sit at home and they can see all the details. Then they make their assumption, right? Oh, well, he should have done this, he should have done that. But I think that's the benefit of the modern game. You know, way back when you could see a goal or a tackle, and then there's no analysis. It's like VAR. Technology is part of the game, and it's a big part of the game nowadays. So I think, yes, even when I've watched, let's say I've been to watch a game at Old Trafford, I will then always go and watch, a certain match of the day or watch the highlights on Sky, just for the benefit of, oh, well, I saw that from a different angle.
Yeah.
When I saw it, it was definitely a red, or, it should have been onside, what have you. Because obviously there is that side of it, which is part and parcel of paying the money to go and watch the game live. It's an experience.
Yeah, I don't always feel like it's the greatest spectator experience though at Old Trafford, because we don't have big screens, do we? So we don't get to see replays of the game. I mean, but Matt, I'll come to you. I mean, I don't know what do you go to games at Old Trafford? Obviously, you've been before to Old Trafford, I'm sure, mate. I'll often. I mean, I'm fortunate I get to go regularly, but I'll often come home from a game and someone will say, oh, I think he was man of the match. And I'll be like, oh, well, from what I saw, he didn't seem to do that much. Or it might be more of a case of this player's had a bad game, but actually I've watched him and I've kept my eye on him for a while, and he's made loads of different runs and he's put a lot into the game. But actually that doesn't always get picked up on TV. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think they're two very different experiences, aren't they, guys? I mean, when you're sitting in the ground, Ollie makes a great point. When you watch something happen in live, you're there at the ground, it's happened. You make your views known on what you've just seen, and it's a different experience. I mean, I think about when last game I went to, and I watched a particular player, and I went to watch that particular player just to see what his body language was like off the ball, what his runs were like, what his work rate was like, what his interactions were like with the other players, because I'd made an assumption, or I'd gathered an opinion based on what I'd seen purely on TV. Yeah. And actually it very much changed my opinion around that particular player. And I think that that's always going to happen. They're two different experiences. I mean, let's get it right. When you go to the ground, you can watch whichever player you want to watch for 5 minutes to 90 minutes. On TV, we watch what they show us. It's as simple as that. And whether that's match of the day highlights that have been edited to show a particular narrative, or whether that's live on Sky or BT or whatever, and we can watch the 10, 12, 15 different replays. It's a different experience, and our choices are limited when we're watching it on TV compared to our choices when we're in the ground. Because like I say, you can pick a player to watch for as long as you want when you're in that ground, but we only watch what we get shown when we're watching it on TV.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, I know Sky used to offer the feature of player cam, didn't they, for a while? Do you remember that? Years back, that was quite an interesting feature. And I think now they have what they call the analyst camera that you can watch, which gives you the span of the whole picture, and it sort of gives you the angle that maybe the coaches get and things like that. But Keane, I just want to come to you, because the reason I ask this as well is because actually some of our players have been performing, well, to our perception from what we're watching on TV, quite badly this season. I'm thinking like Harry Maguire, but the thing is that he's coming in for quite a lot of abuse on social media. He's getting called names. And the thing is that I don't know for sure, but I'm sure if we were probably at the ground, we wouldn't see a player there not giving his all. I think we're just seeing a player that's obviously struggling for whatever reasons. But actually, if I was at the ground and I could see him at least attempting to organise that defence or trying to put himself in the right positions, that would change my perception of him. So my issue is that it's becoming a bit of an issue because, people are starting to get, some pretty bad abuse now online because of their performances.
Yeah, look, I suppose we're kind of in a time now where none of us can go to the ground and we can't fully analyse, how the players playing in terms of the effort they're putting in terms of their position, in terms of their organisation. We're not getting that full benefit at the moment. And what we're getting dealt with now is we're all watching on television. We're all getting dealt with certain narratives, and we're getting kind of certain angles and stuff like that. But I think with the social media hate these players are getting, again, look, it's bang out of order. Some of the stuff I've seen online in the last kind of couple of days post Tottenham, there's been quite a lot of social media hate. Now, look, again, I'm not going to say that a fan doesn't have an opinion. Everyone has an opinion. That's the beauty, of obviously football. Everyone has a different opinion. But there's some stuff that just goes too far, and it goes beyond football. At the end of the day, if you have an opinion like about their performance or their effort level or whatever that may be, fair enough. But when you make it personal, and that just takes it away from football. At the end of the day, if you're a fan of Manchester United, fair enough, you're going to either support the player or criticise the player. But when you make it personal, that's just too far, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think some of the things I've sort of borderlined on vile and disgusting. And we do have to remember, guys, that these people are still humans at the end of the day. I mean, I'm thinking in terms of Harry Maguire. I mean, we know he's had quite a turbulent summer, and not just himself, but obviously, there was issues with his family were targeted during that whole episode as well. So I think we need to be really careful when we start, abusing people, because you don't know actually what they're going through themselves in their mind. But I just want to move on now to sort of this coronavirus and the impact that it'll be having on the club financially. I mean, we've talked that obviously about we don't think it's time for fans to come in, and that's fair enough at the moment. But we've already seen that probably our club more than any has been hit, because there's no getting away from it. We have the biggest capacity of a home game. I think we're 76,000. I think the next biggest one is at Tottenham Stadium. It's probably around about 60,000. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's spot on the money, mate.
And to be honest with you, I never used to think match day revenue was a big thing at United, but something came out the other week, or the other month, sorry, that suggested that it's their fourth highest income stream. So it is quite a big thing for United, the fact that they're not getting fans through the turnstile. Ollie, we've all been frustrated by this transfer window. Obviously, we didn't get Jadon Sancho in. We probably didn't get a centre back. Whether we were wanting a centre back, I don't know. That's another matter. But can we make that as an excuse for the club a little bit? The fact that we have probably been hit harder than any other Premier League team during the pandemic.
Well, I mean, just like you hit on there, we have got the biggest stadium. I mean, if you actually look at the finances, obviously the public, it's I think around 627 million. Now that's a lot of money. Obviously, we have to pay out a lot of money. Being a bigger club, there's bigger expenses, costs, this and the other. But our match day revenues are about 18%. So figure that out. It's about 110-ish. 110 million a year. So that's going to make a certain impact, isn't it? On any club.
Well, that would have paid for Jadon Sancho this summer, wouldn't it? If you think about just that.
Well, there is that. I mean, getting into Jadon Sancho particularly, I do think it was too much. Bearing in mind, a year down the line, it could be 50. I mean, who knows what the plans are going on. We've been very secretive this time about a certain transfer, which is good. Obviously means we found the mole. But, you're looking at losing about 3 million per match day. Let's say we do, half decent runs in the cups and what have you. That's 30 games or so.
Yeah.
So 3 million per match day on revenues, obviously in the shop and everything. It's going to make a big impact. I think we've done quite shrewd business this window. I think we've forced into being clever, as opposed to sticking to this Galactico thing that Ed seems to want to do. Obviously, putting Cavani in the number 7 shirt is to boost the revenue that isn't there. So I can't really blame them for that. We don't want to be dawdling, just slowly but surely, slipping down the ladder into sort of mid-table because of a lack of revenue. So for people to say it's shameless using the number 7, if it gets money in, I won't be rushing out myself to buy that shirt, but why not,
And I'm totally with you, mate. And I think, look, we're not naive here. We know that the club will always think about what's the best way to get the pounds into the club. And, we might criticise them for that. But actually, when we come out of this pandemic, in a way, we might also be thanking them as well, because, we want to have a football club that can still sign great players when this is all over. I mean, Matt, I'll come to you because, the one... you could argue that everybody's been affected by Corona, but obviously some clubs have spent a lot this summer, mainly probably Chelsea, if you want to use them as an example. So they sort of throw United's argument out the window a little bit. But actually, do you think it's more of being about that the money's not there, or do you subscribe to this idea? And actually, I think it's a good point. As an image of a club, you need to be careful what you're doing, spending £120 million on players when we know what's going on in the world at the moment. So my question to you, I suppose, is: do you think it's more they haven't got the money, or do you think it's more that they just didn't think that spending 120 million looks right at the moment?
Well, I think we know that we're owned by businessmen. We're owned by very risk-averse businessmen. They mortgage to the hilt to buy the club based on the revenue streams. And I think that, Ollie touched on it and quoting the figures, over 600 million in revenues. But because of our stadium, 110 million of that is your match day revenues. And you average that out over 26 games, I think it was in 18-19. That's over £4 million a home game lost. I think since we came back from lockdown, we've played maybe five home games behind closed doors. £20 million in revenue gone. And I think you've got to look at how risk averse the Glazers are. And we're talking about, I think Keane touched on the fact that he doesn't think we'll see fans till after Christmas. I personally think that's optimistic. With flu and the cold weather, I don't think we'll see fans at the earliest until March time. And I think the Glazers are basing their spending at the moment on having a closed stadium all season.
Yeah.
And that's 110 million pounds of revenues gone. And there's been a lot of comparisons about Chelsea and about Villa and about City and about Everton. We're not owned by billionaire individuals that are going to go and put their hand in their pocket and spend 200 million on players. We're owned by businessmen who spend the revenues generated by the club on investing in the team. And if they believe that 110 million of that revenue isn't going to be there, they ain't going to spend it. It's purely and simply that way. And the other thing is, over 100 million socially does not look a great thing to do when we're in the midst of a pandemic. So I absolutely subscribe to that. And I also subscribe to the fact that, Dortmund were trying to take us for a ride. It was the Man United premium. If any other club had been sniffing around, they'd have set the price at 80 million and probably given them the whole window to buy. But it was the Manchester United premium that always gets charged to any player value, any agent fee, any basic salary. And do you know what? I'm disappointed that we haven't signed him, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, it's actually probably a responsible thing to do as a club. And if you look into the numbers like we have done and Ollie has done as well, you can't spend money the way you would like to spend money if you know that potentially you're 110 million, 18% of revenue gone. You just can't do it.
Yeah, no, and I'm totally with you on that. And if you're right as well, that say we play 3/4 of the season, maybe the whole season without fans. Actually, when we get to next summer, it might look a real smart decision that the Glazers have made. Maybe a lot of clubs probably not kind of look that far in front. The one thing I will say on Chelsea also as well is don't forget that they had a transfer ban for 2 windows. So they've not spent too much over those couple of windows.
They also sold Eden Hazard as well for like nearly 100 million.
Yeah, exactly.
And they also sold Bakayoko. They sold Morata for like nearly 70 million. So when you look into like their revenue streams, they haven't had to dip in, and financial fair play won't hit them either because of the situation with their revenue. And then obviously Abramovich again hasn't dipped in, as you said, for nearly 2 windows. That's why it won't affect a club like Chelsea. Whereas Man United, like we've been affected by it massively.
Yeah, and Chelsea, that 100 million that they got for Hazard or whatever, it's been in a bank getting interest. So they've saved up, they've saved the pennies, and they've splashed out. There's some fair play to them. Keane, I just want to come to you though, because Matt says there it could be March until we get fans back. So looking forward, how much of a concern is this to the next 2 windows? I know United don't normally do big business in January as such, and I can't see them doing a lot of business this January. But next summer as well, could we see a similar situation where it'll be the same again? It'll be another sort of, I don't know, a buyer's market, if you know what I mean. And if that is the case, maybe United might get another free run at Sancho, because if there's no fans in stadiums again, Chelsea's finances won't be much different. Liverpool's finances won't be much different. Real Madrid, Barcelona, all the big teams who will be looking at Sancho. So actually, could we have the similar window again next summer, do you think?
it could possibly be a similar window, as you said. Like, look, we don't know when fans are going to come back, though huge revenue streams or be coming out of the club. And another thing as well, like one thing I'd like to throw in here is obviously the Euros is next summer. So will clubs obviously still charge a premium if some of their players do well in the Euros? That's another element we have to look at, especially with the likes of Jadon Sancho. I think next summer will definitely hinge on some outgoings for ourselves. So obviously you look at the likes, obviously Phil Jones, Marcus Rojo, though Jesse Lingard, players like that who we still haven't got off the wage bill yet. I think next summer if we have to buy players, again we'll have to get wages off the wage bill because there's still a lot of players at the club, who are on high wages at the moment. We're still there. I think we're finding it hard at the moment, especially in this window, to get them off our books. I think we'll have to do that before we spend big. And again, we might have to sell a player like Paul Pogba or someone like that to generate a reasonable amount of cash before we can go out and significantly add to our squad. Like there's a lot of things that we have to think about here that still have to happen between now and the next window. And again, as you alluded to with January as well, look, I think the only bit of business that we would have done in January was maybe a striker for a Gallo leaving. But again, look, that void has been filled now, obviously, with Cavani coming in. So I think at the moment, it's kind of, I suppose, a touch and go situation with transfers. And again, there's still a big thing with the Euros next summer. I think that's going to have a big impact, not just for Manchester United, but for everyone else in the transfer window.
No, totally agree with you. And I, again, like you, I was thinking maybe a striker in January, but now they've obviously addressed that with Cavani, and they've probably got that done now because they don't know what the situation is going to be in January. I can't have seen Cavani still being a free agent come January either, to be fair. Now, there hasn't been a lot of news because obviously we are in the middle of an international week here. Well, the next 10 days or so, isn't it? We've got internationals coming up, until United play again. So, but there has been one piece of news, and it surrounds Bruno Fernandes. Now, Ollie, I'll come to you first. I saw a report today in one of the news outlets that's suggesting that Man United is starting to have some concerns with his physical and mental state. And I think it's interesting because we have seen a different Bruno Fernandes. Maybe the last 2 or 3 games of the season last year, he was struggling a little. And also, we have seen him. He's sort of not afraid to sort of voice his displeasure about the team, probably more behind closed doors. I mean, there was the issue with Lindelof in the Sevilla game, obviously in the Europa League last season, but also there was reports that he had a bust-up with Maguire in the dressing room at half-time of the Tottenham game, and therefore Ollie didn't feel like he was in the right state of mind to come back out on the field. Now, if it's just physical, you can think to yourself, well, maybe send him off for a couple of weeks, get himself rest if he needs that, or if he needs to play more, get him playing in more games. But it's the mental side that concerns me a little bit, because if he's having mental issues or if he's having falling outs with his teammates, that's going to affect his performance as well. So what do you make of this?
I think that's all a bit easy, if I'm honest. When I saw that this morning, I didn't know whether or not it was just a bit sort of fake news. They've thrown that in just to balm it over. I think there's nothing wrong, with having that sort of passionate fire in you. I think to say that the potential for mental health issues is far too far. I think that's possibly to appease, a few snowflakes nowadays. There's nothing wrong with that. If Twitter had been as big as it was when Keane was going, mental, sort of that visceral anger in the middle of a pitch, it'd be the same thing. But I can't imagine, it'd be leaked out, we're concerned about his mental health and his physical well-being. I think it's a bit protective, and I'm all for, positive protection of, United players. But at the same point, there's nothing wrong, in my eyes, with him being, that sort of fiery character. You can see it. There's videos of when he was at Sporting Lisbon. Something's not gone his way, or he's been taken off when he feels that he can still contribute.
Yeah,
and he is angry. He's kicking his boots about and stuff. It's not petulance as such as passion. And I think there is a fine line. He's not sat on the bench huffing and puffing and screaming at the manager or anything. He's showing that passion and leadership, more to the point. I think there's your obvious candidate for the new captain.
And I think you make some fantastic points there, Ollie, and that's the way I'd rather look at it. I mean, Matt, haven't we been screaming out, I think, at this club for the last 7 years to have someone like a Bruno who isn't afraid to sort of voice his opinion on the pitch and at half time. And actually, rather than thinking that because he's doing that, he's actually upset and he's not happy at the club or he's not happy with his teammates, should we be looking at it is that actually what he's doing is he's trying to higher expectations and trying to drag everyone else along with him.
Yeah, look, I'm not buying any of this around the mental issues. It's another example of, we've got an absolutely fantastic footballer at our club who has demonstrated the sorts of behaviours on the pitch and potentially in the changing room at half time that we've been crying out for. You're absolutely spot on. And this will be another spin by, Mail Online, whoever it might be, it'll be another spin to try and bring some negative attention towards a Manchester United player. And don't get me wrong, comes with the territory. If you're going to go and sign for one of the biggest clubs in the world, you're going to get that. You're going to get people trying to make a name for themselves off the back of what you do. But I'm not having it. I'm not having it. If you look at the Sevilla game, you saw him balling out Lindelof. I love that. That's what I want. That's what I want my players to be doing. When I read the story about him in the changing room, tearing strips off Maguire, I want that. I absolutely want that. Why wouldn't you want that? A bit like Ollie says, I've seen the footage of when he's walked into the safe zone in the stadium and smashed holes in the doors. And don't get me wrong, there is a line. You rightly said there is a line. I don't believe he's crossed it. I don't believe. Let's get it right. If you look at the running stats for Fernandes in the last couple of games, I read one game he ran over a kilometre. It might have been Brighton on 1-3-2, but he ran over a kilometre more than any other outfield player on there. Now, if that's not a desire to drag your team towards a victory, then you show me something else that is. And if other people aren't pulling their weight, and if other people aren't doing what he expects them to do because his standards are so high, I want him calling them out on it. Now, from a physical point of view, I wouldn't be at all surprised if he's absolutely shattered. From the minute he signed, he has played pretty much every minute, probably ran further than any other player on the pitch for those minutes. Had a really, really small window where he's been able to have a bit of a break. And I wouldn't at all be surprised if he's absolutely shattered. But let's get it right. That's what we've got. Fitness experts at the club. That's what we've got. Coaches at the club to monitor this data, monitor this analysis. And if he is physically tired, or if he does move into the amber or the red zone, let's give him a rest. Give him a break. We've got other legs. We've got other legs we can bring in, and we should be bringing in to protect our best players. And that's what we've got. That's what we've got to do. So that's my view on it.
Yeah, we strengthened that midfield this year, didn't we, with the signing of Donny van der Beek, and you should hope that he would be a player that can help Bruno get through this season with rotation. But Keane, I mean, again, are you the same? I mean, it just feels like it's a situation where a player's not playing really well, a player that had been playing unbelievably well, and everyone's got to try and find a reason why, and actually, instead of worrying about why it is, just accept that that's part of football. Sometimes players do have dips in form. Instead of trying to find things and manufacture things either through the media or through whatever stream, can't people just accept that he's struggling at the moment?
Yeah, I think, look, one thing people have to accept that he's struggling at the moment. This is a player who basically carried Sporting Lisbon on his back before he came to Manchester United. He played nearly every single minute of every single game there. Comes to Manchester United and literally carries them to top four last season, arguably. Like, he's been absolutely exceptional since he's been at the club. One thing I'll say is he might be knackered physically, and that's because of the work rate and the tenacity of the player. And if he's going in and he's digging out players and not pulling their weight in, like my namesake Roy Keane would do, that's what he done, and that's what we're crying out for as a fan base. Too long at this club we've had players who are just bystanders and who come to this club for a wage and don't pull their socks up and put their weight around and actually play for the badge. Bruno's one of them players. Bruno's doing that.
Yeah.
And for too long we've had mercenaries. And for him to come in and do that with the short space of time he's been at the club, I love that. I love that we have leaders. We should have more of them in the dressing room, because for too long at Manchester United we've had players who are not pulling their weight. And for too long it's just we need to demand more, and we have a player like that with Bruno that's doing that. So long may that continue. Now look, we have Van de Beek there who we can come in there and provide that kind of, I suppose, facility for Bruno to get a rest. So play Van de Beek more. If Bruno's knackered, give the man a rest, and look, bring him back in when he's fresh and fit and firing, because look, we have a tough fixture list coming up now. We've PSG, Chelsea, Leipzig, Arsenal, Newcastle, all tough teams in their own right. So squad management is a massive thing here, the massive thing. So all you need to be wise, Mike Phelan, Michael Carrick, they all need to get together, sports sciences, whoever at the club, and just need to manage their squad 100%.
Yeah, how we're going to manage him. And so many of the other players are crucial. I mean, we could talk about Maguire as well. We could talk about a lot of players that are going to need, I think, at some point soon, a rest. Some fantastic points there, Keane, as there has been from all of you. Thank you so much for your time this morning. We are at the end of today's Today at Man United. Easy for me to say. If you have enjoyed the video, do smash a like on it. Hit the subscribe button on the channel. This is a brilliant channel. Like I said, we've got loads of brilliant content. If Man United's your club, then this is where you need to be. Thanks to you, Ollie, for today, mate. Great contribution.
Cheers, Joe, mate. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on, mate. Thank you. Matt, thank you for giving us your time this morning, mate. First time I've worked with you. Some fantastic points, mate. Great to have you on.
Thanks for having us, Joe. Appreciate it, mate.
No, cheers, mate. Thank you. And Keane, worked with you before, mate, and I'm sure I'll be working with you plenty in the future. Thanks for coming on today, mate. And, well, thanks for a great contribution like everyone else.
Thanks very much, Joe. Look, enjoy the rest of your day, pal.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. And do watch out, like I say, for more shows coming up in the next couple of days. Tomorrow morning, we've got Today at Man United as well. So until then, we'll see you then. Cheers. Bye.